Greetings. I'm coming to you from Spark Tomorrow with Don't Sleep, Texas. I think this is the video 19 or maybe video number 20. Why? Because I'm just trying to do my part. You know, there's so much disinformation out there, but I just want to speak to two contrary set of facts. If you're just now tuning into the election process, and that's on the national level, I respect that. No judgment from me on that. But I want you to hear the closing remarks from both. One, you have Harris, who's a part of the Biden administration. Many want to blame that administration for high prices. However, on the global scene, the Dow Jones is at its record. It's one of the highest that it's been. Unemployment is down. And what the U.S. under Biden-Harris administration has done to overcome the pandemic is hills and streams. Check the data points. Look at economic articles. I research and look at economic articles before I just make a video. But they are hills and streams ahead of other industrialized countries that are saying, what did you do to create such a quick recovery? Next, I also just realized that for the research states that for the first time in 40 years that the U.S. is energy independent, which means we're not depending on Saudi Arabia or the countries for our oil, for our coal. We are sustaining at a surplus level our own energy. So for those that are saying we're not drilling, yes we are. For those that are saying we're not using wind power, yes we are. Solar power, yes we are. So this Biden-Harris administration is using a variety. So I just challenge you to dig up some facts. So economically, what is she planning to do? Well, cut taxes for middle class. That had not been done under the other administration. It just had not. That's a lot of statements that are being said, but not true, not accurate. Anyone can say something. Y'all do your research on it. And do you know that stimulus check that so many are hanging on to, of bread and butter while they will vote? One, Congress initiated 1,200. The other candidate, Donald Trump, said 600. Once Congress finally persuaded him to do 1,200, he only said he would do it if his name was signed on the check. Now let's think about this from an ego standpoint. Something's just not quite right about that. All right, so we're not even going to get into the Dobbs and abortion situation. You see the stories. You see how women are losing their lives. Abortion is not just someone that's out there in the streets doing way too much. I don't condone a loose lifestyle. But we're talking about people who have some medical challenges, and to continue to carry this baby is a health risk for their life and the baby life. Now you have husbands who are young and now widows. You have young people who are now motherless. I don't think that is pro-life. And then it always amazes me how we can be in one breath pro-life, but then we can be what I consider anti-child. What do you mean anti-child? Well, while we're being pro-life, are we considering anything that we're going to do for Head Start or free lunch programs? No. Are we considering any ways that when this person, should they have been having unprotected sex and say that they could not support a child, are we doing anything to make her mental health available, her financial resources available, when she and maybe even the father has stated mentally and financially they weren't ready? All right, so that's on one side of the aisle. On the other side of the aisle, don't take it from me. Go back and watch the last 2 weeks of what's coming out of his mouth. The last 2 weeks, he's talking about putting guns in the face of Liz Cheney, Republican, by the way. In the last 2 weeks, he's talked about Puerto Ricans. In the last 2 weeks, he's talked about how beautiful his white skin is and how everyone is poisoning the blood of America. In the last 2 weeks, he's talked about 1789 and how it was such a great time. Well, again, during 1789, it may have been great for some, but others were pretty much invisibles. In 1789, women didn't have the right to vote. In 1789, no person that was outside of the white race was allowed to vote. Let's take it a step further. Then we had some obscene gestures just this weekend on the stage by this gentleman that's on the top of the ticket, Donald J. Trump. We also had him threatening his stage workers behind him because his mic wasn't working well. Should he just go and bash them? We had him threatening Michelle Obama Like, she has free speech. She's exercising it. And this man is talking about that was a bad thing she did. We got a very good surprise coming for her. Now, that's the words of a president. That's a word that says, when I get in office, I can't wait to get even. And when I get in office, I have a list of people that I really do plan to go after. And, I work. And as a leader, when I speak to my staff, I may have to clarify what I meant in a statement, but no one has to clarify for me. So I find it very interesting that every time he's called to the carpet for something that was very obscene, vulgar, profane, violent, that then someone comes behind him on the right-wing media and says, no, this is what he really meant. So you mean to tell me we need a president that every time he utters something, we're going to need someone else basically as a translator, and he speaks English to define and clearly rehash what he's saying? Celebrities are one thing, but I just like the perspective of some celebrities who, unlike me and you, middle class, they have nothing to gain from this. But to hear Greg Popovich, head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, I'm talking about good at his job, Greg Popovich, world champion, NBA champion coach, Greg Popovich, to hear his rationale of why he refused to support Donald J. Trump. He talks about his racial housing profile when he was a landlord in New York. He talks about him wrongfully accusing and wishing dead amongst the Central Park Five minority young men. Greg Popovich talks about there's just a maturity level that is lacking in the presidential candidate, Donald J. Trump. He talked about now, if he taught his grandchildren to follow that philosophy of life, it would be, grandchildren, this is Greg Popovich speaking, when you play a soccer game, should you lose, you didn't lose. He said then if he was leading his grandchildren and children in the method of Donald J. Trump, he will teach them to think, well, if you lose this soccer match, grandchild, I want you to blame your teammates. I want you to blame the coach. I want you to blame the referee, because there's no way you should lose. Instead of just saying, sometimes in life you will win, sometimes in life you will lose. The list of contrast goes on. And I just ask you to watch what comes out of both of their mouths. I ask you to go back and listen to who was instructing you to drink bleach during COVID. But if COVID was a hoax, why was he sending ventilators and COVID tests to Putin? That's the Russian dictator. So if COVID wasn't real and he wanted us as Americans to get over it, why then were you sending real COVID tests to Russia instead of to U.S. citizens where we were struggling to get our hands on them? Why were you sending broken ventilators to California? Because California is a blue state. We need a president that's willing to lock hands with everybody. And I'm talking about minorities. I'm talking about women. I'm talking about young voters. I'm talking about every race, every nationality, because I just don't see that coming out of one side. One side will continue to keep us arguing with each other, fighting with each other, defending what each other feel. A good debate is great, but just some immaturity is not what we need. So I'm asking everybody to run through the tape. You got one more person that you need to remind to go ahead and get their vote out. If Iowa can flip blue, and Iowa will flip blue, I just really feel like it will. A very, very trustworthy poll. I feel like Texas and Florida are right behind that blue flip. We're right behind it. But that means you've got to share this video with someone that needs to get to the poll tomorrow. Maybe they're tired of hearing from you. Maybe they'll listen to me on a few facts and then look them up and make a great decision on their own. Maybe you've got that one elderly church member, that one elderly person in your family that no one has stopped to see. Do they need a ride to the poll? Remember, if you know someone that is physically incapable of standing in the line, if you pull up to the polls here in Texas, They will bring the voting machine to the car. You all run through the finish. Don't think your vote won't matter. I know Texas has been traditionally red, but y'all, we were only 5 percentage points away from being blue last time. And with the wake of voters that are seeing this stark contrast, I really do feel like Black Texas is in a blue state. Not because we all want to be Democrat, but we're in a blue state because we are looking at the moral character and composition of the leader, and we know who we want on a national mic speaking to our children. I'm really definitely calling out you educators, because he has recently, about 3 Fridays ago, on Fox and Friends, said day one he's going to cut $2 trillion. He's going to let Elon Musk cut $2 trillion from the U.S. budget. And first step will be to dismantle the Department of Education. Well, if public school doesn't matter to you, I want you to think about how many Americans that will marginalize out of opportunities to get Pell Grants and student loans to attend college. Y'all, it is a systemic attempt to lock doors on the less fortunate. It is a systemic attempt to keep a race or a demographic from achieving any new levels. So run through the tape, find someone that needs to know the importance of this election, and maybe they've set out elections in the past, but they are a registered voter. Let them know that on this time, this national landscape really does matter. Let's run through the tape, Texas. A rather long video, but there's just a lot that I've been kind of holding in this weekend. I hadn't made a video, I believe, since last Thursday, and I promised I would do my part because Michelle Obama said do something, and her speech inspired me. It did, to do something. We all have those moments where someone inspires you to do more than what you're doing, and that one told me to do something. So get someone to a poll on tomorrow. They may need transportation, they may need a pep talk, they may need a video, they need to be led to just look at the videos. Don't take my words for it. Research, do some Googling of what he says out of his mouth and what she says out of her mouth. Look at her track record in California. It's pretty strong of what she was trying to do for the least of them, or for those that normally can't speak up for themselves. Make a great decision. All right, y'all, we're going to turn Texas blue. I feel it. I feel like Texas, Florida, and Iowa are going to be blue. Not Democratic blue, but principled blue, because we want to stand on some morals and some principles that matter not just to us, but the future behind us. This election is going to tell our children and grandchildren what we think about them and how we value them. Make the right decision. Vote blue. Look at your research, and I bet you'll deduce the same thing.